So let's go ahead and begin our class. Obviously, we're holding this as a live session. I appreciate both of you being with us. That's going to help me in terms of kind of gauging how well you're understanding how I'm presenting things. And then I'd appreciate it if you feel very free asking questions, because that's going to help the students that are listening to this and viewing it just from the video that I'll post a little bit later on today in Canvas. What I want to do is spend a couple of minutes just talking about the situation at hand with the schools closing to in-person instruction for the next week or so and maybe longer. And then I want to look at our schedule for the class. I want to consider some of the assignments coming up. I then want to take any questions if you have them with respect to the midterm that I emailed back to you yesterday. Talk a little bit about other questions you might have with respect to the problem sets that you're turning in today. And then we're going to start to look at evaluation frameworks. And you're already somewhat familiar with this, and I'll walk you through things, and we'll look at a couple of Excel examples as well. So with that, this is a very trying time for many students. I don't know about the two of you, but some of your peers are anxious, concerned, wondering how things are going to affect their graduation, the job market, etc. So I just wanted to take a minute to, if you have any questions, any comments, anything you'd like to say about where we are at the moment, to just have a chance to talk about it for a minute. I know, Victor, you got out of Dodge about as fast as you could. You're in Finland now, right?
Well, I made a pretty fast assessment, and I'm actually really happy about my conclusion and the research I did in that short amount of time and the research that was available, because everything's shutting down. And I got out like really fast. I made the decision super fast, and I think I made the right call in terms of that. We can see now that, Europe is shutting their borders, everybody's shutting their borders, so it's kind of hard to even get here anymore. And I'm now, so I have to be home now for 2 weeks in quarantine. And, I have to be really careful. I can't really go anywhere, but, that's just how it is. And, I'm lucky that I got out, I assume.
Well, I think you're right, and I think you were smart to do so. When you first approached me about the possibility, I was a little bit resistant. I don't know if that was obvious to you in my responses. I think it probably was.
Yeah.
I was concerned about what you might miss. And I was concerned that if we went back to in-person instruction, that it might jeopardize your ability to finish the semester. Obviously, that's not the case. And in fact, to be candid with you, it will surprise me if we return to in-person instruction for the rest of the semester. I don't expect it at all.
I agree so too. With what they're suggesting now from the U.S. government and from all the governments around the world, it seems like everybody's going to be shut down for a month at least. And, in Finland, for instance, we're not allowed to be in groups of 10 people or more. It's not allowed. It's overseen by the police. So you have to be careful, and it's something that is taken seriously. So I would be shocked if the classes would continue in Salt Lake. But I think I made the right call. Yeah,
I think so. And I see that Alex has joined us. Alex, you're welcome to unmute yourself. But Alex left, and I think you're in Grenada, aren't you, Alex? Here,
Alex, we can't hear you.
I will
unmute away.
Okay, Alex, we can hear you now if you speak. I've unmuted you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't think we were doing the class this morning. And, I don't have any internet connection when I'm like on the island, so I just have.
You're fine.
Are you in Grenada?
Yeah, I'm in Grenada.
Nice.
I was on the boat this morning.
Well, very good. So let me just talk a little bit about class and plans at the college. Obviously, we've been saying here over the last couple of minutes that we don't expect to see classes resume in-person instruction this semester. That's not an official notice from the college, of course. We'll receive something confirming that, or giving us other instruction, hopefully at the end of this week or over the weekend. But I'd be very surprised to see us go back to in-person instruction, both for the rest of the semester and probably for the May term as well. I don't know if you guys are registered in any of the May term courses, but I'm already beginning to structure my May term course as though it's a fully online course. You've seen the notification from the college with respect to postponing graduation, or the actual graduation ceremony itself. But for those of you that are getting ready to graduate and making your plans for the summer, we don't know when that graduation is going to be. I wouldn't expect it until maybe middle or end of summer. But that you will have graduated, that you will have earned your degree, that the credits for these courses you're in will count towards your degree, whether it's coming up now or in another year or so, is without question. So you needn't worry about those things. I think internships might be interesting this summer. For those of you that are working in internships, some businesses are moving ahead with their internship plans. Some businesses are moving their interns to virtual internships, just like, so telecommuting, working from home. Oh. And yeah, which is a little bit interesting because the internships, unless you've already been working for the company, there's some training that needs to take place, right? And you need to have a mentor. And so I'll be interested to see how those companies pull that off. And some are just moving ahead, business as usual. They have small enough work environments in terms of the number of people, or large enough in terms of space between people so that social distances can be maintained well, that they're not concerned about. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. One of the elements in this course that we need to consider is the next item in the job market development assignments, and that is the live speed interviewing session that we have planned, I believe, for April the 8th. That's not going to take place. That would have included upwards of 50 people, so way over the number of people that we're being asked to limit ourselves to. It's possible that I will devise an online version of that, although I'm not certain at the moment how I would pull that off. It can be very cumbersome. It would require many online meetings, 25 times 5 or 6 separate online meetings, so that may be a little hard to pull off. Or it's possible that I change the assignment in some way, or it's most likely that I'll just eliminate that assignment and put it off to another class, another time, but not for our class, not for this semester. That's my current thought. We'll see. Just kind of stay tuned on that. Any other comments or questions you might like to offer with respect to the uncertainties we're living through?
So I actually wanted to ask from you. You mentioned that you're planning already doing May term classes in an online format. Do you really think the case that you would do a May term class online?
I think that it's hard for me to answer that. Yes, I would do a May term class online if I am expected or required to. The May term course that I have planned is a capital markets course with the IPO of venture capital and just the remainder of the major capital markets and financing. So I was hoping to not do that as an online class. I was hoping to do that as a live class, but that option may not be open. We may not resume in-person instruction until after May. If you look at what many other colleges are doing, and if you look at what's happened in other countries that are further along this curve than we are, it would suggest that we probably won't see online, or rather see live instruction the rest of this semester or during May. We just don't know is what it boils down to. And that's the nexus of the insecurity and uncertainty that we're experiencing.
Okay, gotcha. Because I actually just started to think of that because I'm asking because of your class, that if that's the case, then that would be actually pretty, I mean, interesting for me to try to do it. I don't know, Alex, if you want to do it as well, you know, online, but that if it's going to be online, then that could be something that I would like to do actually from here. If that's the case, then in the end.
Are any of you currently registered for my May term course?
So like for me, I I was like kind of like I planned it, so I just need to register. So I was waiting to ask you the same question and Victor. I didn't know if you were keeping that or no, and if it's worth it to do it online or no. Like,
well, here's what I can tell you. If the college is going to have May term courses, and if the campus is going to be closed, then I will have prepared and executed an online version of the May term course that I'm scheduled to teach. And it will be worth it. I'm not going to put something up there for you guys to take that's a piece of junk. So if we're going to put a course up that you're going to participate in online, I'll make sure that it's worth your while. That said, it's going to take an awful lot of retooling and re-engineering from what I'd already envisioned. But that's fine. You know, I don't have any problem doing that. But we're in for an interesting couple of months ahead of us. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, because me, I think I'll come back in Salt Lake normally in 1 month if everything is getting better, and then because if May term is in like with a real class, I'll stay for May term. But as you said, I don't think that's gonna happen either. So
yeah, so we're going to know about this in a number of weeks, right? At the moment, I think we're just indicating things we're curious about or maybe even anxious about. But at this point, these are unknowns to us. So just recognize that a lot of decisions are going to be made over the next 6 or 8 weeks that will affect not only this semester, but will affect May, maybe even other summer courses, although I doubt any of you are involved in summer courses. So here's the other thing I want you to keep in perspective about this. Uncertainty, when it's just a little bit, or when it's something that someone you know controls, is a little bit challenging for us. Uncertainty when we have no control over it, and when it affects huge swaths of the population, is a lot harder for us. And this is an experience that no one that I'm aware of that's alive has ever had before. The closest thing we've had to the experience we're going through right now is when the world dealt with the Spanish flu in 1918. Well, you'd have to be 107 years old to be able to have any real memory of that, because that was 102 years ago. And this, so we've not experienced anything like this. Literally, this is something that you will tell your grandchildren and great-grandchildren about, and they'll ask you about back in the day. Try to soak in the richness of the unexpected, and try to soak in the cultural perspectives of what we are experiencing, because this is a rarity for any of us, and for you to experience it at this point in your lives, is, I think, extraordinarily formative, for what that's worth.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you say we talk a little bit of finance? Are we ready for it?
Wait, just one question
Yes.
before we move on. You said that for graduating people, the ceremony won't happen, but we'll be able to finish all our classes and graduate this spring as planned.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. None of this should have any effect on your actual graduation status. You
Thank
may
goodness.
just not have walked across a podium or had a party.
That's okay.
Or maybe you will have a party. It just may not be at the Maverick Center with several thousand of your closest friends, right?
It can only be with a few people unless no big gathering.
Okay. Okay. Well, look, let's take a brief look at the schedule. I'm going to share my screen with you, so we're all looking at the same schedule.
Can I just go quickly take my my papers and my pen because they're in the other room? I was kind of in a hurry. I just saw you
Certainly, certainly,
Yep.
and you don't need permission for that.
Mhm.
So what we're looking at here, of course, is the syllabus, and I've just opened it up to the schedule part. Here we are today, this week 10, where we're looking at evaluation frameworks. So we're going to look a little bit more at the KVD model today. You've seen this before, but we'll look at the APV model as well today. Then we move into enterprise value multiples. And Megan, those are the class of multiples and evaluation form you and I were discussing before we started today. And then we'll go in and look at enterprise multiples and equity values. We have been scheduled to have a guest speaker, Tom Lewis, the former CEO of Ameritrade, on April 1st. That's almost certainly not going to be live at this point in terms of live and in person, but Tom and I have spoken, and we will likely still hold that session, but we'll hold it as a live webcast. And he's a very interesting guy. I don't see anything else coming up over the next few weeks that would be terribly affected by not having live instruction. I am a little curious as to how we're going to execute the qualitative exam and analysis and interpretation exam the week of April 13th and 15th, but I'm thinking about that. And then I'm kind of curious as to how we'll deal with our evaluation cases and that assignment at the end of the term. My sense is that when we get to those valuation cases, when we get to Tom Lewis, maybe even when we get to that next exam, we'll probably have to require that everyone participate in live webcasts, certainly for Lewis and those valuation cases. So whereas this one's being held live with those of us that are here, but also being available by recording afterwards, I think we're going to have to require that everyone participate live on April 1st and then the April 27th and 29th. Otherwise, I think the rest of our schedule is able to hold. With respect to turning in assignments, some of the assignments, like the Excel assignments, you're turning in digitally anyway. So you're just submitting them on Canvas. That won't change. Some of the problem sets, though, you've gotten used to either writing the answers to the questions in the problem set and turning in a physical copy on the desk. And you're not going to be able to do that, of course. I'm going to recommend that what you do is use the Word doc that is the problem set, and then either type or copy and paste into that doc the various solutions and your comments so I can understand your solutions, and submit that document. And if you've used the spreadsheet or a spreadsheet to support it, submit the spreadsheet as well. You don't have to submit the spreadsheet, but if there's a problem within your responses or your solutions, you're welcome to, if there's a problem in your solutions, I can help you figure out the problem and solve it if I see the spreadsheet you used to create the solution. Whereas if you just give me the answers, I can't help you with that. Victor?
I just didn't know for the ICP, so I did it on Excel, and then I just copied from Excel and copy paste it on the Word. Would you rather have so that we would have the Excel file separate and then the Word file if we need to write out some answers?
Yeah, so I think what I'd like you to do is copy and paste the solutions from Excel or wherever into the Word document and submit the Word document. But when you do that, when I see this in Word, I don't see the formulas that you used from Excel. All I can see is the values that those formulas created. So go ahead and submit your Excel file also. Now, if you don't, it's not going to change your score on those assignments, okay? Not on the problem set assignments. It won't change your score. So you don't need to submit the Excel file. I'm just saying that if you want to, then I can help you solve any problems that you may have created if you're getting the wrong answers, okay?
Because like, for example, if we see we don't have the same results than on the solution, we can then submit Excel and Word, and then you can help us. Otherwise, if we have the same results, we can just leave it like that.
You're exactly right, Alex.
Okay.
Now, if you do get the different solution and want me to help you figure it out from the Excel file, you're going to have to tell me that, because you know that I don't spend a lot of time reviewing those problem sets, because I know that I should find all the right answers because you have the right answers available to you. So when you're submitting these, if there's a problem and you want me to help you solve that problem, you may well have to tell me that you want my help, and that way I'll dig into it. Otherwise, I might not see it. Okay? But everything else I think can be submitted just as we currently would expect. So I'm going to take us back to where I'm not going to share the screen there for a little bit. Okay, so I don't think you're seeing the syllabus any longer, are you?
No.
Okay, good. Excuse me. I've had a cold this last week. I promise it's not COVID anything. It's just a cold, and it's still a little bit in my throat, but it's not bad. I'm pretty much over it otherwise. Okay, so let's actually start to take a look then at, or deal with any questions you might have immediately with respect to the midterm. Any questions you want to ask me about the midterm?
I had on the last question, on question number 8. So there we were asked about the fact that if the Sonoma shareholders and board of directors accept the opportunity capital's offer to purchase 40% of outstanding equity shares as indicated, what might be the investors' results in NPV and IRR? So here I calculated with the 40%, and then also it seems like I should have done it with the 9 billion rather than with the value I calculated. So can we just run that quickly through?
You bet. And excuse me, I apologize. I don't actually have my handwritten solution set here with me. It's at my office on campus. And so what I brought up that I think you're seeing is simply the exam itself, so you can see the questions. But I can use this to kind of walk you through things. So this was not only the last question on the exam, but as it turns out, the most technically challenging question on the exam. And because of that, I didn't necessarily expect everyone would handle it perfectly, or frankly, I didn't expect anyone would handle it perfectly. I'm going to kind of walk through for you what the issues are with this. It also, by the way, was worth fewer points than any other question on the exam. Okay, and I was more generous in how I scored this question because of my expectation. That said, so we got to think about this a little bit. First of all, if we're given an offer based upon some percentage of the company or percentage of equity shares or whatever it is, that doesn't change the value of the company. We still use the whole valuation of the company. And so in this case, some of you tried to narrow everything down into 40%. So 40% of the present value or 40% of the net present value. Some of you even took 40% of the IRR. And you tried to morph this into a proportional item, but because internal rate of return becomes a ratio, then you didn't actually have to do that. You could have given me some net present value and IRR results without having honed this into a 40% structure. So this would have all been based upon 9 billion. So 9 billion then would become the total valuation for this firm. And you could have then driven a net present value and an IRR based on that. So I'm trying to remember right off the top of my head. It seems to me that the offer was for $9 billion.
Yeah.
But like, where did we say that it was for 9 billion? Is that up in the story?
Yeah. So it's
Yeah, it's right here. 9 billion.
Just above
Yep.
question.
I'm looking at it
1.
right now. Yeah, so the offer for the 40% equity was based on a total firm valuation of 9 billion. Okay, so it wasn't that the 40% was 9 billion, it was a total valuation of 9 billion. So think of it this way. 9 billion would be the cost, and then the benefit would be all the expected future cash flows, from which we could then drive a net present value and an internal rate of return. You might have taken it a little bit further and said, well, okay, but this is buying a 40% equity stake. So you might have even gone ahead and figured out, of the 9 billion, what part might be considered equity and what part might be considered debt. Because if that 9 billion is what is paid for the company, or if that's the total valuation, then we know that part of that's equity, part of it's debt. So think about the 9 billion as enterprise value, which is going to be equal to market cap of equity plus market cap of debt minus any excess cash. And so you could have then reverse engineered that, already having identified a market value of debt and knowing what the cash is on the balance sheet. You could have reverse engineered that and identified what part of that is equity. You could have then figured out what 40% of that equity amount would be. So there's a lot you could do with this. I will go ahead and post on Canvas, send out to each of you, my solution to that particular problem. But I probably won't do it yet. I'll probably wait until March 30th, when we look at enterprise multiples and equity values, because that's when some of this will come into greater focus. Or maybe I'll go ahead and post it here in the next day or so, but we'll return to this and we'll go through this question itself when we go through the equity values on March 30th. So that's only, that's only a week out, or less than a week out, I guess. Well, it's Monday. Wow, darn. It's faster than I thought it was coming. By the way, we just got a message up. You may have seen it that said we're running out of time. We're actually not. Zoom has a 40-minute limit unless you have a paid subscription, but they've relaxed that limit during this experience. So we won't be timed out, or at least I haven't experienced this being timed out with the other courses I've been holding like this before.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question?
A question still, the thing what I really would like to have, sort of answer is that, so when we're buying 40% of the company, then okay, I understand that we're using the whole value of the company, the 9 billion, but the thing what caught my attention of the 40% is that the cash flow, they're yielding still different amounts. So the cash flow are not 100%. Well, you're going to get 40% of the cash flow. So the cash flows then in the end, they're going to yield you a different number over time, right? So that's what I started to think of, that when they're going to yield different numbers and accumulate different value long term, then it would be accurate to calculate as 40%.
It's not that calculating it as 40% and making everything proportional is necessarily wrong, Victor. It's just not necessary. Because it's all proportional, and a dollar's cash flow that the company would create isn't expressly divided up amongst their stakeholders. It is proportionally owned by all the stakeholders.
Because I remember like that during the test I checked because I didn't know if it was better to do 40% of the whole thing, and I had the same IRR by doing both if you do it proportionally. And my NPV was the same than if I was doing 9 million minus the value that I had times 0.4. So like
Right. Yeah, you just trying to narrow everything down to that 40% proportionality just was a lot more work than was necessary.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, we see you have the same IRR, so I think for this.
Exactly. Again, I'll post a solution to this so you can see how I work the rest of this out.
Yeah.
Any other questions with respect to the exam?
Yeah, I just have a question. So like not necessarily about the exam, but so about the growth, the long-term growth, because in the exam I was not sure about like doing adding the inflation to the 2.5% we had. And then, because I was kind of confused, because I know in the class we said that normally a growth, long-term growth should be no more than 3.5, something like that. Kind of like a rule.
Yeah. So here you see that I've indicated in the exam overall economic growth is expected to take place about 2.5%, while inflation estimates are less than 2%. So in this case, when we think about economic growth at 2.5%, that includes inflation. Now, if I had said real economic growth would be inflation adjusted already, right? Think back to your Econ 253 courses, your macroeconomics courses. So I didn't say real economic growth. So this would be just changes in GDP, in which case the 2% would already be embedded in it.
Okay.